and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat.
They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Calm is the state of mind that Vancouver Canucks fans are never in. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. I'm Sean. I'm joined by Tyler and Chris tonight. How you doing, boys?
Hey, that's very smooth coming out of the intro sequence there. That was good. I like that. Makes my clip at the end there just that much more brilliant. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, Canucks Twitter or Canucks social media is the antithesis of calm. So yeah, it's always amusing to end it on that note.
Yeah.
And well, there's a lot of things to get all up in arms about right now in Canuck land because, man, it's been a while since we've podcasted about the Canucks. We got Kevin on to talk about the Flames last weekend. And we got Devin on to talk about the Flames last weekend.
That's incredible.
I'm still, my mind's still blown that we got him in there. So, but we now got a lot of Canucks talk to get to. And as the title of the episode is Elias Pettersson back, why don't we start there? His play has improved a lot, and he's starting to show the confidence and the swagger that we know PD has when he's on. So do you think that he is out of the doldrums and back as the player that we need him to be as Canucks fans?
I'm going to say right now, yes. Whether that lasts, that remains to be seen. It has been out there reported that he has removed himself from social media, and hard to really know for sure like how much of an impact that would have on his confidence, but perhaps it did. Perhaps there is something to do with that maybe hurting his confidence, which is, seems hard to understand for a guy that's making huge amounts of money, but it could also just be distracting. And then actually just finding the net a few times and getting that feel back in his shot. That's what you need to sort of bump the slump. It's just having success, breeding more success. And I think that's where he's at right now. And hopefully it remains that way.
He's definitely a cerebral type player. So I feel like him in this day and age with how prevalent social media is and how unafraid assholes are about letting you know their shitty opinions. Yeah, I'm not surprised that was affecting his mental game. That being said, do I think it's a good idea that he's now stepped away from social media? Absolutely. He's definitely trending in the right direction. He's had 5 goals in the past 7 games or something like that. So yeah, I feel he's definitely trending in the right direction. Is he maybe at his elite best right now? I would probably say not yet, but like I said, right direction. Let's hope it continues and that he gets to that spot where we're like, hell yeah, that guy is worth 11 point something $million a year.
Yeah, and it's not just the stats. I mean, that's the measurable part for fans and media that really gets everybody's attention when the numbers are low. But it's everything. It's driving the play. It's staying on his feet more often. We've seen the reverse hit a bunch of times. He's kind of made that his thing a little bit. All of those things put together, you're seeing a more assertive, more confident Elias Pettersson out there. And not all of it's measurable. His defensive play has been all right. Face-offs have been, to me, acceptable. So, it just seems like he's out of the slump, at least for now.
He's got 6 points and 3 goals in his past 5 games. And yeah, and I feel like it was coming too. I know there was before this bump up now with the production, felt like his game was slowly coming around. He was starting to he was never a defensive liability. It just felt like he lacked confidence with the puck and knowing what to do with it. And now that he's starting to get that confidence back, you're starting to see the player that we know he can be. And it's good, especially now with all the injuries and absences the Canucks are dealing with. They need him to step up and it's not necessarily just produce, but he needs to control the game and he needs to dominate the game. And he can do that. Yeah. We know he can. He's done it in the past and he'll do it in the future. But especially on this road trip, they're going to need him to step up big time.
Especially in the context of the next topic that we're going to be talking about, with the absence of JT, the importance of PD stepping up his game is crucial if we want to have a successful road trip.
Yeah. And we might as well transition into that right away. JT Miller is on personal leave, out indefinitely. So first off, hope he's doing okay. And everything and the family is all doing okay. But from the reporting, it does sound like this is more of a burnout situation. And I if that's the case, then I think him stepping away for this road trip and just being able to not have to go through the grind that is being a professional hockey player for a little bit there, I think is going to be good for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if when he comes back, he'll be he'll have a rocket firing up, and he'll just be ready to go.
Yeah, it definitely seems like he just needs a good, solid mental reset. It seems like. And I think it's also been reported that he's been fighting something physically, and then that was frustrating him, that he was basically not able to kind of work his way through that and still be at what he considers an acceptable level. And it just got to a point where he was so mentally frustrated by that. It just seemed like the two were almost kind of adding on top of each other to the point where, he just felt like he needed to have this leave of absence.
Yeah, it's a unique situation when they got the head coach assembling the press and kind of like the dad admonishing the child, saying, please don't speculate. And, we hope that doesn't happen from people, certainly not people that are in prominent media positions. But at the same time, it's awfully concerning that a guy of this importance in the middle of the season is going to miss this stretch of games over something that may simply just be due to being burnt out. So whatever the case is, we hope that gets resolved in a quick fashion. And when it will be at some point. I'm with you, Sean. I think he'll just be guns a-blazing when he comes back. So, we wish JT the best. But yeah, definitely an odd situation and news the Canucks and their fans didn't want to hear at this point in time.
And I feel it was, at least from this one reporter, was fairly reported on. Patrick Johnson from the Vancouver Sun province said that he was able to confirm that it basically had zero to do with anything like substance abuse, alcohol, drug related whatsoever, and that it's purely just that he needed more of a kind of a mental reset than anything. So, yeah.
And I think with us normal folk, I think we can all understand needing to step away and just you just need a break from the stresses and everything. So I hope he's able to reset and recharge and get ready to, because when he comes back, the Canucks are going to be right in the thick of things. We're a week away from a week away from American Thanksgiving. And that's usually when you start looking at where teams are at and who's in trouble, who's not, type deal.
Fairly big checkpoint.
Yeah. So the Canucks are right in the mix in the Pacific Division. No one's taken the ball and run with it like the Canucks did last year. They're only 3 points out of first, but they're only 3 points out of seventh. So glass half full, glass half empty type situation there. But they're when they get fully healthy, if they can get fully healthy, they're going to need all their stars run at 100% to going forward through the rest of the season and hopefully into the playoffs here, because they can't just be running off of just one line, and especially with the depth that they have up front, they shouldn't have to. But it's so yeah, as with everything with JT, just hope that he can get back to being the F-bomb dropping heart and soul of the Canucks that he is.
The emotional leader for sure.
Well, and so on that point of emotional leadership, and I did want to get this in, Jeff Pettersson had reported from practice the morning of this news coming out, talking about how it was pin drop quiet at practice. So whatever the case may be, and you heard the comments from Petey and from Quinn Hughes as well following that practice. You could see just how tight the group is and how meaningful JT Miller is to the group based on what we gathered there from that practice. So my hope is the team will rally around and pull together for him. At the same time, that's a big piece that's missing. It could be a turbulent stretch here without him, to say the least.
And not only that, but 2/3 of that quote unquote top line is currently out indefinitely. So yeah, definitely concerning. And we can only hope that the team can kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of hobble their way through this and still, be fairly presentable on the other side of it.
And while it was a loss against the Rangers, I thought they played really they played spirited. Sherwood and Garland leading the way in that aspect, and I felt that they just were they got a little unlucky in that game, but they just never gave up. It wasn't like a lot of their other regulation losses this year, where it just was like, it's like, why am I watching this type deal? So if they can find a way to at least keep themselves in games, they're going to find ways to win games and stay within the race, because we know that they can, if they get healthy, they can get firing on all cylinders, that this team is good enough to go on a run and get comfortably into the playoff situation picture again.
Yeah.
And Chris, you mentioned it earlier, just right there as well. I think this happened since our last Canucks podcast. The Tanner Jeannot hit on Brock Besser, and Brock Besser being out indefinitely with a upper body injury. Do you guys have any thoughts on the hit specifically?
The hit itself, I credit the referees. They called it a 5-minute match penalty, actually, instead of just a major penalty, which is an important distinction because the match triggers it's indefinite suspension pending a review from the Department of Player Safety, and then that led to a 3-game suspension?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, which seems light, but. I mean, most of the time, I suppose, when these kinds of hits happen, the reaction from a lot of people is that it's always too late, whatever the number ends up being relative to what the infraction was. Just a really I guess the comment was a really reckless play. Hard. Like, how does the player justify making that play? Yes, everything's happening very fast, and a lot faster than even full speed replays. Never mind slow motion replays, but. You have to be accountable for what you do out there, and Jeannot was accountable with a 3-game suspension, although Brock Besser's still not playing, and it doesn't seem very just. The idea that a player has to sit out as long as the injury occurs, that's nice in theory, but there's issues with that too, and to get all of the teams on board with that kind of idea, like you'll never get that at a competition committee meeting or a board of governors meeting or whatever. Like, you're never going to get agreement on that. So whoever wants that level of discipline to be put into place, that's kind of dreaming, I think.
That's a vocal minority, not a majority.
Yeah. I mean, you're never going to get 32 representatives together and have that be agreed upon. I don't see that happening. So, but it seems like there's some good news for Brock Besser. He's skating again, so maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel on him getting back to the lineup.
Yeah, it sounds like he will be going on the road. He's gone on the road trip with the team. Skated on Tuesday. I don't know if he'll play on Saturday versus Ottawa, but if he doesn't, he'll be back pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, that's good. They, as Chris alluded to, I mean, having both Miller and Besser out at the same time here is a real hole in the lineup. So getting him back, not rushing him back. There's a bigger picture here, but getting him back sooner rather than later is going to be huge.
Was it ever confirmed that he was officially concussed?
I don't think it was, but
there was some. I don't know if it was
everyone can probably make that
speculation
assumption, but I'm just not sure if I ever saw the reporting about it.
I saw something about it being a little bit more whiplash related than anything else.
Okay.
But I can't remember where I saw it, how accurate it was, and all that. So there's a lot of, and then with the way the Canucks handle they handle injuries these days, they hold them close to the vest. It's very old school in that aspect, and so I don't think we're gonna
very Jim Rutherford, if you will.
Yes. So. We won't get. I don't think we'll get the full story out of that right now.
Yeah. I only ask that in the sense that I just want. Obviously, the last thing I would want is anything related to like what like Tucker Pullman went through, in the sense of like having like a history of concussions and then having it kind of compound on top of each other. And like, we all know how much shit Brock has gone through, not only in his personal life, but his professional career physically as well. So like, we just want the best for him and him to be able to come back as soon as possible at 100%.
Yeah. It's every concussion's different. Every player's different. Every situation is different, right? So, like, if we go compare like to Tua Tagovailoa in Miami with the Dolphins in the NFL, like he's been how many concussions has he had, and he's still coming back. So it's hard to read.
The NFL has a totally different relationship with CTE than hockey does.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we might as well continue on with the players who are not with the team right now. Thatcher Demko. It sounds like he's getting closer, but it feels like every time we talk, I've said that. Sounds like he's getting closer. I don't know when that's going to be at this point. It feels imminent at this point, based off
at
of
least with this update,
but
though, it came from Thatcher himself, not just some reporter giving us a non-update update.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm at the point where as long as we're not being told there's a setback, I can take some comfort in that.
Yeah.
Because there was that point in the past, right?
Yeah, I just feel like if Thatcher is willing and wanting to talk to the media about it, then I feel like it's probably worth at least us having this, brief discussion about it.
That is a great point there. Yes, the fact that he is actually putting his own face to the story is a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously we just hope that he comes back sooner than later, but Same with Brock at 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing, I think. And we also have to temper the expectations on what he's going to look like coming back and how often he's going to play, at least to start. Right now, like, the last few games, it's felt that the Canucks had, like, it's not that Lankinen and Shelovs have played poorly, but they haven't given the Canucks saves when they need it. And there hasn't been goal. I wouldn't say there hasn't been any like really soft goals, but there's been goals where you're like, he probably should have had it, or he could have had it.
Yeah, when you're scuffling a bit and you're in a tight game and then you don't get that critical save, it's it leaves you wanting, doesn't it? Even though the losses usually can't be pinned on the goalie.
Yeah. So but again, it's so hard because when it's not always about just the stats with goaltenders. It's about when they're making the saves, and sometimes you just need a save. And it's talking going back to with PD too. It's not always about the stats. The Canucks need him to be taking over games and controlling games and being the reason that they win games. The Canucks also need that from their goaltending.
Especially in the NHL too, with the TV timeouts, right, and how all of that's structured. Like you can sort of be on the ropes there in between, dying for that next commercial break where everything slows down and the shovel people come out and it's kind of a bit of a reset. Like we as fans can overlook that because we're just used to watching on TV, but it could be teetering on the edge of disaster, and then you give up a goal, and then you don't get that TV timeout, and now it keeps going even further, and the game can kind of snowball, right? So sometimes that critical save actually it comes in that scenario, and if you can get that big save, hold the puck, get to the commercial break, a reset, often you can withstand a rough stretch in a period if that occurs. So that's where those timely saves are extra critical, and sometimes the Canucks that hasn't worked out for them.
And like you said, Tyler, like a lot of us fans are too inundated with sports betting commercials to be able to even fully realize that sometimes.
I mean, it's something you're more aware of when you actually go to a game because the whole thing stops and you see them do their thing and then it's 2 minutes goes by or
and you don't realize how long those
back
commercial breaks are sometimes until you realize that or experience that in person.
There was a game a couple of years ago I went to, and it was the Penguins, and they were having a tough night. And the Canucks had just they were off to a bad start. They just got their first win the night before against Seattle. And I think I don't know if it was in the second period, but there was a commercial break prior to a Penguins power play. And it was hard not to notice Sidney Crosby out there diagramming it with the other Penguins power play guys. And sure enough, coming out of the commercial, what did they do? They scored. So these are little things you kind of miss when you're watching on TV.
Yeah.
Gave them a second to kind of reset things and come up with a plan.
Mm-hmm. And then we can talk about he's not with the team anymore because he got sent down today. Jonathan Lekkerimäki made his debut with the Canucks.
Yeah.
And but today he was sent down. Max Sasson was called up. But what do you guys think of Lekkerimäki's play in his 5 games with the Canucks?
Impressive. Buzzing in the first game, gets his first goal in the second game with a really nice, patient, poised shot early in the game.
What a snipe.
The family was still there. He looks like he was given the call up not too early. Now they're going to let him continue to develop. They can get him back down to Abbotsford. Rick Tocchet after practice today was commenting about how Lekkerimäki's a shooter, and we love his shot. The kid has a shot, that's great, but there's got to be more to his game than that at this level. And so Rick has challenged him to go and work on that and not be standing around waiting for a shot. You got to be more involved in the offense and not be stagnant. It was all really insightful stuff from the coach, and I'm sure the kid will take that to heart and work on that. But the fact that he can come up and fairly quickly have an impact with a shot of that caliber is a really encouraging sign.
Yeah. Still can obviously use some time down in the A to develop his game and be a more fully rounded player. But like you said, for what we saw, and given that it was just a small sample size, it was impressive what he was able to accomplish. And like it was reasonable in the sense of calling him up due to the injuries that they're currently dealing with. But I think, if he is going to be at the NHL level this season, it's best and responsible to do it in just small stints like what they did.
Yeah. Once the Besser injury came up, I think they felt like they might have had to make this move. And so I was a little reluctant that maybe they're rushing the kid. I don't think they rushed him, but they also don't want to overdo it with him at this point either. So I think he's being handled properly to this point. And I just want to say, as a quick aside, it's always amusing to see the parents when they're watching their kid make their NHL debut. For the mom, it's an event and getting photos and excited and texting family, perhaps. The dad is just dialed, just stressing out. It's like this to say, just holding his breath like a bad turnover is going to happen or something. And then once the first goal goes in, then he starts to see the smile. So it was classic with that one.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just a sentimental suck, but when you see the emotion hit the parent's face, I don't know. It's just like.
I know. That's what sports is all about, isn't it? Right? Like if you're one of those guys out there, it's bigger than just them.
Yeah.
There's all the people that helped them get there.
It's all the people that got them there.
Yeah. So, we're all getting older and softer, I suppose. But I love that part of sports too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's there's I don't think there's words that can really properly describe just the feelings that they have watching, and then even the feelings you have watching them, because it's just I agree with it. I wasn't as concerned about him being a bit early because I knew it wasn't going to be a long call up. I figured that they would be smart with this and make sure that call him up, give him a taste, make see where he's at, and if he's not quite ready, they'd send him down. It's not that he's out of place in the NHL at this point, but he's better served playing top line minutes in the AHL, developing the details and the Rick Tocchet staples that'll allow him to be an absolute star in this league. Because that's not, the Canucks aren't with Lekkermäki. The Canucks aren't in the business of just developing him into a capable NHL player. They're in the business of developing him into a star. Because if he can be a top 6 forward for them going forwards, they could potentially have their two top 6 right wing spots locked up long term by the end of this year with Lekkermäki and Besser. And just because Lekkermäki comes up and plays well does not mean that the Canucks are going to have the ability to move on from Besser. That's not. You want both of those players in your top 6, top 9 starting next year.
Yeah, that's when you get greedy. That's when you're allowed to be greedy. Yeah.
And if the rumored cap bump happens, or if it's bigger, that just makes it easier for the Canucks to keep Besser, and it makes it even I want to see both of them next year in the top 6, top 9, because honestly, if you have your three top right shot forwards as wingers as Besser, Garland, and Lekkermäki, you're golden. Those are 3 players who can either drive a line in Garland's case, be one-shot shooters in both Besser and Lekkermäki's, one-shot goal scorers in those 2 guys' play. That's what you need, and that's the type of depth you need to be a Stanley Cup contender.
Mm-hmm.
With all that in mind, how do you feel about the Canucks at this point? Because I said we are a week away from American Thanksgiving. They're 3 points out of first in the division, but also 3 points out of 7th. They've struggled on home ice, have been good on the road, but they've been dealing with a lot so far this year. And think about what the Canucks have dealt with since the beginning of camp.
Yeah.
Still no Demko, Dakota Joshua cancer. Then you throw in Petey's not playing well. Then now the Brock Besser injury and the JT Miller situation. There's been a lot going on. And while we would rather see them being at the top of the division, playing well most games. They haven't, but where are you standing with the Canucks at this point?
Chris?
I mean, I feel like I've had like a fairly reasonable expectation that like we all expect them to at the end of the season make the playoffs, but given the current injury woes and all that, like I feel like they're exactly where I thought they would likely be at this point, all things considered. So, like, I'm not panicking. I'm not one of, as Sean would call them, a chicken little, thinking that the sky's falling. But I also don't have these unreasonably lofty expectations that why aren't they, sitting at the top of the Western Conference right now? Like, yeah, they aren't disappointing me, but they also aren't blowing the doors off either. They're exactly where I thought they would be.
I would say I'm reasonably at ease with where they're at. I mean, Sean, you listed off a whole bunch of challenges there, and a lot of roster turnover too going into this season. So chemistry and all those things were going to be challenging. Demko in particular being out, and then Shilov's looking. That's it's been brought back down to earth now that he's a bit more of a known quantity. But given all that, they're still in position to probably make the playoffs as long as they don't go on a one or two really terrible long losing streaks here. And it's about getting in the dance, right? Like there's what is the advantage of winning the President's Trophy? What is the real advantage of being first in the conference? I mean, we haven't really seen much of a definitive advantage with that. It'd be nice to have home ice advantage, I suppose, in the earlier rounds of the playoffs. But last year they had that in the second round against Edmonton, and they lost the seventh game on home ice anyways. So, no, they just need to continue to get through these challenging times, get more of their A lineup back together, hopefully find a little more success, start improving that home record, and then I think the fans will be happy with the product come playoff time, if it all goes in that direction. But as we've seen, the journey is not a smooth one, and it's not a straight line. There's going to be more hiccups that, this is where we get into the known knowns and the unknowns and all that kind of stuff. Like with this team, you never know what sort of lurks around the corner as a new challenge, but I think the guys are up to whatever challenge they may be facing.
Yeah, I think when you look at all the different the roster turnover, all the different things that they've gone through, where they're at, I think is a fair spot. My only concern is that the majority of their regulation losses have been blowouts, and it's just been there's times where I've just angry quit watching because it's like, why am I watching this? They're not playing. But it's I think now that Petey is starting to find his game again. They've got some absolute energy players. Kiefer Sherwood is an absolute revelation. Like, what a signing.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that he's wearing Todd Bertuzzi's old 44 too. Like, he's not the same type of player, but he's so rambunctious. Like, he is a Berkey player. That the truculence, the pugnacity, all of Berkey's favorite words. That is that is Kiefer Sherwood.
You hit a note when you get Tyler clapping all giddy.
Oh, come on! When you're expanding the thesaurus here a little bit, that you gets me going. Vocabulary. Let's go. Use it.
And we have now you're getting Dakota Joshua is back. Like he's still not at hitting the top of his game, but when he is, and you've got Sherwood and Dakota Joshua in this in the same lineup, they're gonna be a pain in the ass team to play against, and that's awesome. I think this the big thing to watch out for me with the Canucks is what is the big move they make this year. They made they made the early move for Zadorov last year, and Elliot Friedman is sparking up conversations left, right, and center in Canuck land today with his little 32 thoughts note about maybe the Canucks would think about bringing Zadorov back. And then the big move that the Canucks made last year was for Elias Lindholm. I think the big move is going to be for a defenseman. I think they need to aim higher than just a Zadorov acquisition this year. I think they need to aim for someone who can carry a second pair, because I think it's ideally a right shot defenseman, because if they can, then they can keep Hughes and Ronick together. They've got found money in Eric Brandstrom right now. And
considering he's just a win for the Pullman trade, like that is being aces so far.
Because with Forbort out, but that third pair has been fine, whether it has been Brandstrom and Desharnais or Brandstrom and Forbort, or not Forbort, Juleson. There it is. I was like, I could see his face, and I just couldn't.
I would be number 47 in your program.
Yes. Yes. So if they can, that second pair of Soucy and Myers it isn't working this year. I think they've gotten a little unlucky, but they still haven't been good enough for the Canucks, and they can just upgrade at the second pair, and with the forward depth they have, and once Demko's back, like it's gonna be tough to tell me that there's another team out there that is significantly better than the Canucks, if that's the case.
Yeah, as far as like an on paper roster, as far as the potential that they show, I'm right there with you, Sean.
Yeah. And but the big one right now would be how they do on this 6-game road trip. They're going to do it most likely without JT Miller for the whole time. Looks like Brock Besser should be back for at least majority of it, if not all of it. Maybe we see a Demko near the tail end of it. But 6 games, if they can go 500, I think that will go a long way into sort of quelling the word, any sort of, well, it won't go a long way in quelling the worries in Canucks land, because those worries are always going to be there for a lot of fans. But for me, I think that if they can go 500 on this road trip, that'll be good.
Acceptable.
Acceptable, yes.
Yeah. Just a quick overview of the road trip. It is Saturday against Ottawa. It's an early game on hockey night. We got Tuesday at 4 against the Bruins, 4 Pacific. That is Wednesday next week, 4:30 Pacific against the Penguins, and then it's a matinee on Black Friday in Buffalo. That's a noon start, and then I think they finish up with Detroit and Minnesota after that, December 1st and 3rd. So
noon Pacific or noon in Buffalo?
No, noon Pacific, 3 o'clock.
Okay. Buffalo. For some reason, I was thinking about that in Eastern time, like 9 a.m.
No. We have seen stuff like that before.
I think we've done 10 a.m. starts before, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, there's that's going to be a grind.
Mm-hmm.
Although at least it's spaced out there.
Yes, the thing on that looks good. Other than that weird Black Friday start time, it's just
there is the one back-to-back in there Tuesday, Wednesday, but other than that, it's pretty good.
You're on the 6-game road trip. If you get out there without a back-to-back, you're looking fantastic, honestly. And
it becomes a very long trip.
Yes.
Yeah. In totality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, one topic that has been taking the hockey world by storm is the the NCAA changes that are now allowing players who have played for a CHL team to play in Div 1 NCAA. We're just starting to see the consequences of that for different leagues, the USHL, the BCHL specifically. The BCHL had an emergency meeting this week because they are now losing players left, right, and center who are going back to WHL, OHL, QMJHL teams because they can play there now and not lose their NCAA eligibility. Do you guys have any thoughts on what's going on so far?
I don't have strong feelings on it, but the fact that players were kind of being forced to reach that fork in the road and decide one or the other, either go the CHL route or go pursue the NCAA route, and not be able to change that. I mean, that's tough, right? Like, are you hurting your potential future talent pool by having that be part of the equation? Probably. But you never know what the unintended consequences are of a change like this until you've seen it play out for a while. So it will be interesting to see what happens there. Also interesting to see how these junior leagues like the BC Hockey League that went independent are now kind of been thrown a curveball here, and what the consequences are of that. But I haven't done a deep enough analysis to know whether I support it or not. But I think it should be a positive change for players and their families when they're faced with that choice that now they don't have to really make.
Yeah, to have to make like such a critical decision at age 17 for a lot of these
16.
kids. Yeah. Yeah,
15,
to make
15, 16.
15, yeah. When you're leading up to it, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're that young and you're having to decide, am I good enough to ever end up in the show, or should I prioritize my education? Like, that's a big decision to make at that age. So
Yes.
I'm sure the CHL players are loving this at this point because it gives them that extra flexibility. But yeah, for the BCHL, it's the complete opposite side of that equation. They basically have a pie in their face right now because that decision of going independent, while it looked brave and good at the time, it is definitely biting them in the ass now.
Yeah, we're still unpacking all the consequences that could come from this, even in NHL wise, with the after they're drafted, NCAA players stay with the NHL teams have the rights to NCAA players for 4 years, and then they become free agents. While CHL players currently, if you're drafted out of the CHL, you only have their rights for 2 years, and then they go, depending on age and whatever, they can either go back into the draft or they become free agents. So I think we'll see that even out.
They'll probably balance it out at 3 years or something to that effect.
Yeah, so that's something to look for. And then it's a bit of a wild. I remember the WHL released a statement about that WHL players can go play in the NCAA after their commitments in the WHL are up. But what does that look like, right? So.
Yeah, on 32 Thoughts, they had that question of how enforceable is that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then before we go back, continue on to the next sort of general topic, Dylan's got an interesting comment. Do you guys think that the Canucks make a more long-term prospect swap for Juracek from Columbus? His assumption is the cost being Lekkerimäki.
Wait,
I don't see that. Yeah, I don't see that because they do have Villander coming up, who who may even join the Canucks at the end of this season after his NCAA season is up. And he's also a right shot defenseman, just like Jiricek.
I can't see any trade proposal involving Lecker-Mackey at this point being on the table.
Yeah, I think there's two absolutely unless you're giving up the Canucks are getting like a Bedard back or someone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So realistically, I think there's two non-starters on the Canucks for their prospects, and that is Willander and Lecker-Mackey, and everyone else I think is going to be on the table for the Canucks and draft picks to see who they to try and improve that defense.
Yeah, I think they would I think the management team would be much more open to letting go someone like a Höglander or a Ratu or something like that over a Lecker-Mackey or a Willander for sure.
I think Ratu's is not he's not part of that, but I think he's very damn close to being a non-starter. Just the way he's developed already this season, I think you.
Obviously they wouldn't want to give him away, but if it's a price that they're willing to swallow to get something that will help them out significantly on the back end, they might consider it.
Yeah. And then let's see, lost my agenda. Good job, Sean. All right. The other big news this week would be that the Boston Bruins, who I picked to miss the playoffs for the third, sticking with it until it happens. Might happen now, but they fired Jim Montgomery as their head coach.
Petty thing, though. This is not a pettiness thing, is this? This is an actual hockey analysis. We don't need to bring the PS.
Oh well, it was like it's just the thing. Like it was like they lost Bergeron and they lost Chara and then they lost Krejci. It's like okay, like they're not the Bruins that we know. And then it was like going, and then they still found a way to get in there and.
Well, it's finally. I guess it's finally proving itself to be an issue now.
And now this year I was like, okay, they added Lindholm, they added Zadorov, but like they lost Allmark. Marchand's being held together by duct tape and voodoo magic. I'm still not sure where they're at. So I was like, you know what? You still have the younger teams with Ottawa and Buffalo, and then even Detroit as well, who's not really that young anymore, with the moves that the Yzerplan has made, knocking at the door. I figured that if there's any team that falls out of that, the Atlantic Division, it would be Boston. Well, we'll see what happens with Joe Sacco at the helm now, because they made the move. What do you guys think?
Chris, you go first.
First off, I just want to say you are getting A+ reactions out of Tyler this episode.
Okay, you're going that pause before the voodoo thing.
To get a
I wanted to say something else there, but he pulled it back.
But no, as far as getting back to the actual question at hand, like, am I like heartbroken? It's like, oh no, the Bruins. So yeah, there's always going to be like a little amount of petty always when it comes to the Bruins as a Canucks fan. Yeah. But that being said, like, I agree with Sean's logic. Like, if there was a team when you look at the Eastern standings and be like, if there's a team that has to come out to make room for one of those three teams that have been knocking at the playoff door for the past couple of seasons. Yeah, especially like considering the fact that the Boston Bruins have been playing this game against Father Time as far as getting knocked off their contention horse. Yeah, Father Time always wins, and it seems like it's finally catching up to the Bruins.
Don Sweeney's press conference, a very revealing press conference there yesterday, explaining the decision. Essentially, he gave the old John Madden football coaching theory about if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And he kind of laid it on the players having the attitude of maybe just being a little bit too comfortable with where they were at and how things worked last year. And then, you have to continually pushing the level higher and higher and higher because all the other teams are doing the same thing. And, with all of the big pieces, not just like in terms of talent, but just stature on the team, really like core pieces of the Bruins of old that we knew no longer being there, finally that's all caught up to them. That they whatever level they have been trying to push things forward hasn't been matching what's going on around them.
And adjusting your roster and adjusting your management team are a little bit more complicated or harder to pull off. Firing the coach is always kind of the first go-to scapegoat sort of thing when teams hit the skids, especially for an extended period of time. So am I surprised? Not exactly.
Yeah.
And then on December 4th, the Four Nations rosters are to be announced. Kevin and I talked a little bit about the Canadian roster last episode, but to continue that discussion with you guys, the Canadian goaltending situation is not what we're used to. It's definitely not the
most shallow it's been in decades.
The top end talent that you're so used to, the Broders, the Waz, the Luongos, the Carey Prices. With that in mind, how do you think they should construct the blue line for that with that team? Because you're going to be wanting to play as solid defensively as possible.
I would caution about over and analyzing that. I mean, with Canada's talent pool, I still think you want to just, in theory, come up with the best group of defensemen. You still need to be able to move the puck. You still need to be able to generate some offensive chances from the back end. To go with a purely defensive blue line, do you then subtract from scoring opportunities or other elements of your game because you're trying to cover up goaltending? I don't think that can work in a tournament like this. I think you got to stick with the, with just building out a well-rounded team and having some faith in your goaltending, and then as a team defensively being able to limit chances. They got to stick with that. But yeah, I mean, Sean, you and I think we even did a podcast, I think a couple of years ago now, where we looked at the possibility of best on best international hockey and said, who is playing goal for Canada? And it was a pretty lengthy pause on here wondering, who could be in that conversation. So it is unusual, but, goaltending is more than just the one guy wearing the mask and the pads. It is about a structure and a system and limiting high quality scoring chances. And I think the Canadian team is still going to be able to do that. But when you look at the other countries in this Four Nations tournament, clearly they all have considerably more depth that you can feel confidence in when it comes to the goaltending position.
Yeah, and like Tyler was alluding to, like how you set up a roster for a short round robin tournament compared to an NHL team is completely different. So if it was a longer tournament that's more like season-esque, if you will, you'd have a totally different way of thinking about it. But like Tyler was saying, you can't sacrifice the offensive capabilities of Canada's defensemen just for the sake of trying to cover up for lack of depth on goaltending. So even if they send, an Aiden Hill or Jordan Binnington or Logan Thompson or whoever makes the roster, I don't think you have to basically kneecap your offensive capabilities for defense just to make up for that.
Well, and the team should be strong enough where I don't think you need your goaltender to be standing on his head per se. You just need him to be solid, right?
Yeah, and Canada's looked out from having an abundance of riches, and we've just gotten used to that over the years. So this is more,
was a tip of the cap to our friend Artur Shilovs, right? Like we've seen in international hockey where a country like a Latvia or Switzerland or some other, less prominent hockey nation, their only chance of getting far into a tournament is if their goalie stands on his head. And we've seen some pretty spectacular stories resulting from that. But Canada can't be thinking that way. Find the best goalies you have that are available and just focus on building a well-rounded team. That would be my advice.
Although you do bring up a valid point of comparing the Canada's goaltending depth compared to the other three nations, it's just like, oh God.
It is. Just don't cover your eyes now, right? It is daunting. It is when you look at it that way.
I think the thing that comes down to is like you're going to have Cale Makar's already on the roster. He was one of the first names that they announced. All the other defensemen are up for grabs. I think the big one that's going to get argued over and over and over again, even after the roster is announced, is Evan Bouchard.
Yeah,
is he on this team? When I did the podcast with Devin and Kev, I said yes, but after just some thoughts and everything, because it's not like you're not gonna bring, and we love him on this podcast. He's a fantastic defenseman, but you're not going to bring a Chris Tanev to this.
No.
All your defensemen that you're going to bring are going to be capable puck movers. It just comes down to Makar's going to one power play. Who's going to quarterback the second unit is the question. And then you've got potentially Josh Morrissey, Shea Theodore, both can do that. Bouchard can, but he feels like the most defensive liable of those three. Is that if he's more of a defensive liability and you've still got just as good options to run the second unit power play, does he make that team?
I mean, if you're asking me right now if Evan Bouchard's going to make the team, I would say that yes, he probably will.
As far as the betting money, I think he's the likely popular choice. But I do see your line of argument there, Sean, as far as if you're overly strategizing what's the best recipe to win, there is a valid argument that he might be on the outside looking in.
I suppose he better sharpen up his play here in the time between now and when the final roster has to be made, because it does reach the point where your current performance and whether you're trustworthy based on current play, that eventually does factor into those final choices.
That's a 2-week window, Tyler.
I know. Well, so
he scored an absolute highlight reel goal, but that's not what I think they should be looking for. I think they need to be looking at defensemen who, all the defensemen that they're going to bring are going to be capable puck movers. And that's all they really need to be with the forward group that that Canada can bring. I just wonder if they do try and bring him as the second unit power play guy, or if they think that they go just a little safer type deal on that blue line.
Yeah.
All right. We are just about hitting the hour mark on this podcast, so it's time for one last question. And this one is actually courtesy of my boss. He asked me this yesterday, and I think it's a fantastic question, other than the fact that there is a one easy answer. And who is going to be the first $15 million a year player in the NHL? So cap hit of $15 million or more.
Because I didn't do research, I'm going to take the easy one, and I'm going to say it's McJesus.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of prep for that one either. I wonder. Oh boy. I'd have to look at the timing of this.
And that's exactly why I jumped on that, Tyler, because I didn't want to do
Yeah,
it.
you have to look at timelines here. But I mean, if it's if it's not McDavid, I mean, there's got to be like maybe one or two players that could be in consideration, like total.
Kev said McDavid and Shesterkin. I just don't think bumping the top cap hit of a goaltender from 10 million to 15 million is a realistic cap bump, even though I do think Shesterkin is going to reset the market for goalies.
Igor's easily going to be in the double digits, but I don't see him at 15.
No. Like right now, I think it's Bobrovsky is at 10. Technically, Carey Price has the biggest cap hit of goaltenders at 10 and a half, but he hasn't played for a while.
How many more years does he have left?
He's on LTIR. It doesn't matter.
They'll Chris Pronger him into oblivion.
If it's not McDavid, and it may not be McDavid, just based off of when they signed the contract, it could be Kirill Kaprizov.
Fair point.
That's a name.
And it's literally because Minnesota knows that without him, they are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And it's Minnesota, and they're going to need to, like, quote unquote, overpay for him. So, yeah, if it's
we're not making the mistake of twin contracts this time.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, I guess we're looking at like the classes of Bedard and Celebrini suddenly just lighting the world on fire, and then heading to the end of their entry level deal and getting a huge jump. But that just seems outrageous, right? Like that just, I don't.
Yeah, unless Macklin is like the next coming of Austin Matthews. I'm not sure I see that.
I don't know. It's a good question.
I don't see those guys getting 15 on their second contracts. No. Bedard would be maybe.
I can see Bedard getting double digits, but I'm not sure I see it at 15.
No,
and it's not like he's ripping it up with 100 points, and they're like I don't quite see it there yet. If by chance, like it's going, I think it's going to be Kaprizov or McDavid. Draisaitl is already at 14 million, so McDavid's going to be more than that. So to me, like, that's the easy one, but it's going to become the year after those two are up, because that's in basically not this year, but next year. Those guys' contracts run out. The year after is when both Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes contracts are up.
Yeah, that next Hughes contract, man.
Yeah, the only thing about that is like to set the benchmark with a defenseman seems a little harder for me to believe, but I mean, those are the two that would be in that conversation.
Yeah, and it's not. And in 3 years, the cap's going to be over 100 million. I think 15 million for those two makes a lot of sense.
So this is where the next Canadian television rights deal negotiation comes into play, because if that really adds a bunch more money to the hockey related revenue pool, then you could definitely see a jump there.
Yeah,
because Elliot was already talking, I think, 2 episodes ago on 32 Thoughts, where it could potentially jump up to 2 seasons from now up to like potentially 110.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, like you're talking like 2 jumps of like 7-8 mil per season after like how many seasons of like basically no movement at all?
4.
Well, I guess Gary's going to be hoping Amazon Prime's ready to open up the bag for the NHL rights in Canada. We'll find out.
Yeah. All right. That was a good one, guys.
You bet.
All right. How do we follow you guys?
I'm on X at TNoble.
I am on all the social medias at Schneids, and most recently I jumped on the Blue Sky train, but Schneids was already taken, so I'm Schneids 10 there.
Ooh, there you go.
I'm Beta Canucks 03 on X and Blue Sky. You can follow Kevin at KEVOLE on those platforms. Devin is Gordhouse09 on X. His Instagram is still hacked.
Bill, he hasn't gotten back in.
Poor guy.
No.
Yeah.
But we did get him on last week, so please go watch that episode. We will get him on again here soon, hopefully. Thank you for tuning in. You can follow us at Shifts and Pucks on X, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and we are on Blue Sky as well. So, again, like I said, thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time. Bye for now.